Um, Welcome. If you like this content, if you want to see more of it, I implore you to hit the like button down there, the subscribe button, get your notifications going if you're into that. Welcome, motherfuckers, to Comfortable Lies. Democratic Fascism is the title of today's show, and that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about. All the rage, circa AOC and the squad, and Bernie Sanders becoming more politically relevant, even though he's still politically irrelevant, um, was this term democratic socialism, where it's not socialism like Stalinist Russia, but it's democratic socialism like Norway, which doesn't really exist because Norway isn't in any way, shape, or form socialist. They are giving more services to their people, that is correct. But their people do, in fact, pay for them. In Europe, they have 13 months of tax, whereas in America, we have 12 months of tax plus a tax return, which doesn't exist in all of these other countries. I guess that's why they are considered more socialist, but they're not really socialist at all. They're capitalist countries that tax their citizens. Capitalist countries. I mean, I guess you really can't call them capitalist because no one really owns anything in any government. So how can there be private ownership of the means of production? So, anywho, the whole idea that, well, these guys get services, why can't we? We're the most prosperous country, blah 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 blah. And the reason why is pretty obvious. We are the world's police. We are blowing up. We are wasting trillions of dollars daily on killing people living for less than $100 a year. So just to put you guys in check, the reason why we can't have all of these great things that other countries get to have is because the United States is really good at murdering people from a distance. We're going to put that out there. So we really need to kibosh the whole discussion about universal health care, free tuition for schools, until we bring all of our soldiers home, close all of the 180 whatever the fuck military bases in almost every single country on this planet, and defund the military. A military does not need a multi-billion-dollar budget with a multi-billion-dollar expense account attached to it. It's unnecessary. We don't need to be at war with 7 countries at once. And to be completely fair, the guy who was trying to draw us down, well, the Department of Defense admittedly, in front of journalists, admitted to lying to that guy in order to maintain a troop presence in Syria where he wanted to not be there anymore. Shudder the thought. And everyone thought it was a really good joke because, well, nobody liked the guy that they were lying to. Just goes to show that what's really more important, you know. But now back to the topic at hand. After a word from our sponsor. The Bard and Broad Digital Buskers, providing a digital platform for street performers everywhere in the world. Just get yourself a tip cup and start performing today on Bard and Broad's digital platform. The Bard and Broad, bringing the street performer to the digital world. And we're back. So now back to the let's get to the meat and potatoes of this discussion about democratic fascism. Now, last couple of comfortable lies, I talked about how I thought it was a really bad idea to silence groups just because you don't like what they have to say, even if what they have to say is damn near criminal. The reality is, if we don't allow them to say these things publicly, then they move all of their conversations to private conversations. And the difference between public and private conversations is that these people can't be stopped if effectively if their conversations are in private. Now, granted, everyone is chock full of the, oh, but the conversation emboldens others. Well, let me ask you a question. Do you think it was the open conversation about freeing Ireland that emboldened people to act? Or was it the fact that the conversations they were having were in secret to make sure that they didn't get stopped because they are obviously smarter than the average American moron? And what emboldened people was the fact that they were succeeding at everything that they did. If they wanted to assault someplace, they assaulted someplace. If they wanted to bomb someplace, they bombed someplace. And they didn't talk about it on an open media. And oddly enough, they were very successful in committing acts of violence. So when we stop people from openly discussing what they want to do, well, first of all, then we don't know what kind of people we're really dealing with. This goes back to the whole bake the fucking cake scenario. I'm sorry, but if someone wants to refuse service to another person based on some idiot fucking rendition of their religion that isn't even really true because they're not Jewish, they're Christian, so the whole Deuteronomy, Book of Numbers, and all that stuff doesn't really pertain to them. The reality is I want to know because I don't want to give them my money. If someone is an obvious bigot, I don't want to give them my money. I don't. If someone is in the KKK, I want to know because I don't want to interact with that person. And if that person has to do all of that supporting their actions, without my knowledge, then I don't have the opportunity. I don't get to have it's sort of like perfect information about that person. Why is there a campaign to not do business with Chick-fil-A? Well, Chick-fil-A does horrible things with their money. They give money to conversion therapy advocates in other countries, and I'm sorry. I know that conversion therapy is actually a horrible thing, and I can't support anybody who supports conversion therapy. It's a horrible thing to do to a person. Period. Just the same, if I found out somebody's a white supremacist, I am no longer going to associate with that person. I'm not going to do business with that person. That person will not get a red cent out of me. And that's important, because it's an indicator that your behavior is preventing your success. And I think that's something that, the people need to actually come to grips with. You may not like what people have to say, and that's actually preferable. It's preferable to know the people that you find morally repugnant. So, that's number one of democratic fascism. So what do I really mean by democratic fascism? Well, what we saw happening leading up to and in the wake of the January 6th quote-unquote worst coup attempt ever was the government rallying up all sorts of talking points that would make anybody who is a rational human being cringe, and did make all of us rational human beings cringe. I'm sorry, but it's true. Anyone saying, well, we're going to make a list of all the Trump supporters, and we're going to make sure that, everybody knows who they are, so that they can be ostracized from society, they can get blacklisted from getting work, and they can this, and they can that. And you don't realize that that's literally like, throwing a Star of David on somebody's fucking shoulder. Do you know what groups of people have done this in the past? Crack open a fucking history book. Check out 1930s Europe. It's eerily similar. The fucking frustrating part about this is I got to spend 4 years listening to people tell me how Trump is a strong man. He's friends with dictators. He's going to be a dictator. He's going to overthrow the government and install himself as a permanent dictator. Blah, 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 blah. And none of that happened. You assholes are just as fucking bad as Q. And eventually, I will get on that whole fucking shit show of a fucking subject. Maybe next week. I don't know. Still kind of turns my stomach, and I still really don't have nail in the coffin information to say that who I think Q really is, but I have a really strong fucking suspicion. But I'll leave it there. You guys literally acted like Q for the last 4 fucking years. Trump's gonna start World War III. Never actually happened. Never even came close to happening. We are destroying the earth because we were out of the Paris Accords. Has any of the people who actually support being part of the Paris Accords actually read it? Actually understood what it said and what it means for production in this country as opposed to production in third world countries where there are no regulations? If you're really concerned about all of the production, all of the manufacturing leaving this country, the Paris Accords are a really bad idea. You should probably read them. I mean, generally if I get behind something, it's because I've read it and I understand it and I know it. I've read, I understand, and I know the Paris Accords, and it's a bad idea. Bad idea for any country that's winning economically. I mean, granted, we ain't winning economically now, but that's not relevant to the Paris Accords. That's we're still going to get punished because our GDP, we're a developed country, and we're one of the few developed countries that are actually listed in the Paris Accords that's going to get punished heavily for being a developed country, and that's sad, a sad reality. But anyway, so for the last 4 years, we've heard politicians talk about how their constituents were suggested openly on television, that their constituents should get in the face of Trump supporters, push them out of areas, let them know that they're not welcome. All because they painted this whole idea of Trump's a white supremacist and Bolton's white supremacist, and I don't know that that's actually even remotely close to reality. So now another word from our sponsor. The Sacred Agora, your one-stop shop for musical instruments, music lessons, art, and graphic design. Please visit us at thesacredagora.shopify.com. And thank you. All right. So when am I ever going to get to the point of that democratic fascism? So we spent the last 4+ years talking about how the United States isn't looking to go socialist; it's looking to go democratic socialist. And whether or not I believe the United States is or is not a socialist country is completely irrelevant to the point I'm making. The reality is that they said, no, we don't want any of the bad stuff. We want democratic socialism, which means it's all the good stuff that comes from socialism and none of the bad stuff. Like they're not interrelated. Like you can't like you can have all of these government sponsored programs without the government creating a command economy, which then crashes because the government can't plan a command economy, and so everything goes out of control. The production goes out of order because nobody knows what to produce. There's no way to calculate, and then there's shortages, and then there's solutions to those shortages. And when you have an organization that only has a hammer for a tool, every problem's a nail. All of the bad things come from all of the good things that people perceive they get from socialism. So now we have a government that's pushing to have lists of names, have no-fly lists, and this is all stuff that's not really new to the United States. As a free fucking country, we are pretty un-motherfucking free. Just in case you didn't know. And oddly enough, the dickhead you guys fucking elected as president is one of the prime supporters, one of the bill writers for much of the reason why this country is not a free country whatsoever for anybody. And that needs to be understood. That needs to be said. The reason why we have a race problem in this country is the same assholes that you fucking elected. Both of them. San Francisco has a race problem because their former prosecutor, who is now your fucking vice president, that asshole, was putting innocent people in jail, knowing that they were innocent, and keeping them in jail because it financially benefited her. There's your strong black woman who needs to make it in the world. That's her. That's her legacy. I understand that maybe, possibly, you think that she's changed, but, well, no, she hasn't. Same thing with the president. He hasn't changed either. Not one bit. I mean, Caitlyn Jenner was Bruce, and in the Olympics, when the current president was first elected to public office, he has that much of a career being a piece of shit, being a racist, white supremacist, fear-mongering piece of shit his entire career, and now all of a sudden you think he's changed? So right now you have quote-unquote defeated the fascists, except you didn't. You supported a different fascism, democratic fascism, which I guess is supposed to be kinder and gentler because, it has, diversity in those that would be doing the oppressing. I mean, I guess that's something, right? It's bad if only one race is oppressing everybody. It's much better if everybody gets a chance to dip their finger in the oppression bucket, right? Are we gonna wait until we see, who they all decide to load into boxcars and send to the showers? I mean, and I understand why. I understand exactly why the Democrat voting population, and probably a lot of the non-Democrat voting population, because that's how the media painted the former president of the United States, that nobody wanted to be associated with him, and if you were associated with him, you were going to end up on a list. You're going to. You went through all that effort to defeat fascism, but it makes the Friedrich Nietzsche quote very apropos. Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster himself. And if you gaze long enough into the abyss will gaze back into you. Now we'll go back to the camera so I can see what I'm looking at. And that's exactly what happened. It played out exactly that way. Well-meaning, we don't want a hate-filled contingency running the country turned into the very fascists they were trying to fight. And then they go and they parade around this term anti-fascist, and they go, well, anti-fascist means anti-fascism. If you're not with us, you're with the fascists. Unfortunately, I'm not with either of you, because you're both fascist. And I do understand there are people who are anti-fascist, and I sympathize with them. Some of them use that label and some of them don't. And I sympathize because, well, labels are like fucking toilet paper in this country. Nobody has any principles, nobody stands behind anything, and everybody just moves into a movement that has momentum and then makes it whatever they want it to be. But right now, the anti-fascists, the Antifa, they are acting like fascists. They are making lists. They are committing acts of violence based on political disagreement and claiming that political disagreement is enough to convict someone of being a white supremacist, a literal Nazi. That's always a fun one. A fascist. And the problem is that without the use of justice, you don't really stand a chance of being principled in your claim. If everyone that you disagree with automatically is a fascist, well then you're going through life like this, swinging. And in your brain you're justifying it, but the problem is that we don't actually utilize any type of system of justice. I don't agree with the justice system of the United States. I'm an anarchist. But you don't even utilize a dispersed justice system, a diaspora justice system, a justice system that operates outside of the state. You don't even do that. You just go, you support a different person than I support for a political position. Obviously, you are looking to kill everybody, therefore it's okay for us to violate you. And that's not how that works. It's not how a just society works. It's not how a good society works. It's how a fascist society works. And I keep hearing people flipping out that whole anti-fascist means, Antifa means anti-fascist. And I'm sorry, but if your definition of fascism is you don't agree with me, well then no, you are the fascist. If you're sitting there and you're burning books because, you don't agree with what they say politically, you're the fascist. That's what fascists do. If you can tell people, if you can use your words and articulate to people, this is what's wrong with what this person's doing, then you won't have to be violent, because no one's going to do business with those people. No normal people want to do business with white supremacists. No normal people want to do business with racists. And those who do are racist themselves, and then they out themselves in the same light. Period. If you're willing to financially support people who are okay with racism, well then obviously you are okay with racism. You know, the big deal with this is everyone's parading around words with no meaning, and that's a problem. That's a fascist problem. Well, that's a fascist feature, not a flaw. Um, it makes everybody guilty. It makes everybody eventually a target for a fascist government, which we now have. We have a political elite protected by military 24/7. We have new terrorist bills flying around Washington, D.C. that the only people it hurts is marginalized communities. We have an emboldened police force because the person who literally gave them the thumbs up for modern day legal lynching is now their president. This is your world. You live in it. At what point in time do you go enough? I don't know. I mean, I've said enough a long time ago. I'm done with all of this. I tried checking out. People just keep dragging me back in. No, we need your words. And I don't know why. I don't think I'm that fucking great. But here I am. So, the comfortable lie. I guess we're up to that part of that segment. The comfortable lie. Fascism's only bad when the other people have it. When the other people are in control. When people I agree with are in control, obviously, it's not fascism. It's just, doing the right thing. I'm going to tell you honestly, after that bullshit line that I just gave you, I can tell you for a fact, everybody that is completely okay with what the government's doing right now is under the illusion that the government will never change hands and it will never swing the other way. They're giving all this power because they figure, oh, well, we're locked in. We're going to have Democrats for the next 5 election cycles. It ain't going to happen. Because the fact is that the first 2 years, Biden's going to do jack and shit that he actually promised. Oh, he stopped funding on the wall. Oh, he allowed transgender people to go to war. Okay. How about instead we just eliminate selective service registration completely? How about instead we pull out of all of the wars all over the world and we stop creating injured veterans? How about that? How's that sound for a plan? Well, since that's not on the table with Biden, then we have to really consider that maybe he's not so different from his predecessor. And what's going to happen? Maybe 4 years, maybe 8 years, but the entire government's going to swing back the other way. I give it like 2 years for the houses of Congress to be completely fair. The Capitol building will swing the other political direction. And you're going to end up with more populist politicians because they see that it works. And you're going to wind up with more crises and more fear porn because the government sees that it works. It's easy to install a fascist government when your entire population just eats whatever you say and is afraid of whoever you say to be afraid of. Alright, I'm going to go now. Y'all have a great day.